Are we ready?
Hold on.
Is that yes? Oh, hola, hola.
Un momento, por favor.
Sí, señorita.
Okay, just so you guys are aware, there is a 20-second delay on
Sharing the screen.
On the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll offer a prayer, and then Jill, if we can go to your screen, we can all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance because you've got the flag behind you.
I will go ahead and do that. I will
Is that
move
okay?
off to the side. Yes.
All right, I'll start the prayer and then we'll jump. And since nobody can see me, I'm in my pajamas and life is great. Father in heaven, we bow our head before you this evening, give thee thanks for the many blessings in which we enjoy. Grateful for this privilege and opportunity we have to meet as a planning commission for Pleasant View City. We pray thy spirit will be with us, that we'll be guided by thee and make decisions that are beneficial for the residents of this wonderful area, this city. We're grateful for the nation that we live in, for the freedoms that we enjoy. We pray for those who've been personally affected by this coronavirus and pray that thou will comfort them. We also pray, Heavenly Father, that thou will bless the earth, that a vaccine can be found and that this scourge can be eliminated and that we can return to our normal activities. We're grateful for the technology that we have that allows this kind of interaction one with another, even though we're not together, we are together. And we're grateful unto thee for these wonderful opportunities and once again for the technology. Now we dedicate this meeting unto thee in the sacred name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Jill, if you'll go back to you, we'll stand and
There's the flag in the back.
I don't see Jill. Jeff, you don't have a flag. We could pledge to you, but that won't work.
I do not have a flag.
Actually, we could pledge to you, but that won't work.
Oh, there's one.
Jill,
The
There's the
That
flag.
one was hung in Iraq.
Okay, you ready?
yes, I'm ready. Where are you?
I'm right here.
Okay, thank you.
I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
To the
The
flag
flag of the United States of America and
to
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
nation
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
That delay is kind of freaky.
You guys did better than the city council did the other night. I'll just say it.
All right, we'll go ahead and I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from February 20th and March 5th Planning Commission, as well as this agenda tonight. Do I hear a motion?
I'll motion to approve the minutes from February 20th and March 5th. Is that correct?
That is, and also the agenda?
Yes. The motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're jumping into it. First item, public hearing, discussion. How do we have a public hearing with no public?
We do have public.
I'm monitoring the feed of comments on YouTube, and so we would ask that if there are any comments from two people watching the YouTube thing right now, if they would please comment in the comment section on the YouTube channel, we will get those. I will read those out as they come in.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
So
Okay, so first of all, we better have a motion to open for a public hearing.
So I'll
Someone?
go ahead and make that motion to open for public.
Okay, second.
I will second that motion that we open.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're now in a public hearing and we'll turn the time to Jill or Bill. Looks like
it
Jill.
would be me.
You'll-
Okay,
And Bill.
I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
And while I'm pulling this up, oh, come on. Maybe it's not working.
It's
Can
up.
you see?
Yes.
Okay. So, oh, come on. Maybe not. Hold on.
Had it earlier.
There we go. So the first one is for the Singleton residence, or the Singleton property, which is located just west of 1000. If you recognize, this is Gary Stimpson's property, which you guys had a rezone at our last meeting that we actually held here in the office. So they actually went and became under contract with the Singleton residents, and now they're proposing a rezone from our A2, which is agricultural, to RE15. So this is the location. So currently it is A2, that's why it's that light color. Again, the applicant is RW Custom Home, and Leisha is on our Zoom meeting. So if you have any questions, you can ask her. The general plan fits with what they're asking. They're asking for RE15. So their lot is right here within the yellow. I know everything else shows the same color, but it's because the general plan shows anything in that area to be approved for 2 to 3 units per acre, which would be the equivalent to RE20, RE15. So this rezone is just for the Singleton property, nothing else. And again, their request is RE15, which is 3rd acre lots, which does work with the general plan. This is their concept drawing. Again, it's just a concept. It's not set in stone. When the application does come in for the subdivision, we will make sure we look at the 3 stub outs or any water issues, sidewalk, all those types of things for the actual subdivision. But for the rezone, staff actually doesn't see any problems. It fits again, the general plan, and it fits the area. Orchards, which is just west of them, is all RE15. I've had some phone calls just making sure that they're not rezoning any other property. Other than that, I haven't had any comments or concerns sent or called in. So that's all I have on that.
Well,
Okay,
looks like what's proposed, we'd be increasing at 1/3 of an acre for that amount of land. We'd have 11 lots, and it looks like the proposal will take it up to 25. Is that correct?
Well, it's including both Gary Stimpson's property and the Singleton.
Okay,
Which Gary's is already rezoned, so they're rezoning. Their request is for the Singleton property right now, and that's it.
okay, I missed that. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're good. Mhm.
It helps so that it won't be landlocked right there either. That's nice. I think this is a much better, like, I like it.
Yeah, we actually had expressed that concern before about the Singleton property. So this solves some of
But we still are going to require a 3rd stub out. This is just a conceptual drawing only.
Right. So
So
when the subdivision does come in, we will look at everything, make sure everything's
So-
up to city standards, and make sure that there are no landlocked properties.
yeah, so where would that 3rd stub out be? I realize that's up to them. Maybe.
I would assume it would
10.9.
probably be somewhere up here, but again, when we get that subdivision, we'll make sure that works out.
Okay, that's my comment, Jill, is we're still only looking at 2 right now. And so there is still the 3rd missing, 8,
Right.
9, and somewhere up there. So to the west or up, we're still missing. Granted, there is nothing there, or there is a larger lot there that could request something to be developed towards the west in the future.
So if you look, there's homes all along this side.
On the lower west, but on the upper part, that's where we would want potentially allowing them to do something if that's needed.
Right, and that's something we will definitely look at and communicate with.
And
The
I
applicant's been very wonderful to communicate with.
understand this is only zoning only, but if they
Correct.
want to move forward from the zoning, that's something we would want to look at. Another
You
question
bet.
I have, if I might, did we get the KC, is any of that, and I understand this is zoning only, have they moved anywhere forward with the KC triangle at the bottom?
Alicia, are you
We
there?
have, we're in contact with him on basically purchasing that small amount from him. He doesn't want it, as far as I know. And so I believe that when we do go under contract, we may be back here asking for this same rezone for that small area. Or basically, we're just gonna make it work as well. As far as the 3 stub outs, up there in that lot 8 and 9, we have discussed already pulling out one of those lots to make that a stub out there. So that, to answer your questions on that
Okay, thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
So the property to the west of this conceptual drawing, is that the Mark Green?
No.
He's a little bit farther west.
So let me get out of this. Hold on. I'm gonna pull up the map and I will show you. Okay.
Looking good, Jeff.
In my garage.
Hey, wherever.
That's right.
Hey, while Jill's looking that up, we did have a question. I got texted to me from a viewer on the city council named Ann Arrington. Hello, Ann.
Hi,
Thank you
Ann.
for- Thank you
Hi,
for
Ann.
Who's that? Who's Anna
joining in.
Harrington?
She's asking about potential locations for a detention basin for the subdivision and where that might be located. So Alicia, if you wouldn't mind addressing that when we get a moment. Looks like Jill's ready for us there, but when you get a minute, if you wouldn't mind talking about where detention may be located on the property. You may not know just yet, but if you have some idea, that would be helpful.
And one thing that they're gonna have to also remember is if something changes and with the geotech and everything, it might change where it's at as well and how big and whatnot. So there's a little bit more to it. They might have an idea, but this is where the property is that they're requesting the rezone. And Mark Green or the Serenity subdivision is actually down here over by the roundabout.
And that's what they're doing right now, right?
They're doing
Yeah.
construction on the Serenity, yes.
Because I
But-
can hear it.
But for the rezone, I mean, they're apart.
Mhm.
Got your map flipped. That's what threw me off.
Oh,
See what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
Hi, Alicia.
Hello? Oh, wrong
Oh,
wrong
Alicia.
one, sorry.
We got too many Alicias here.
I
There
don't know who to
really
say hi
are.
to, but hi.
So if you'll go back to that map, please, Jill, the aerial.
okay. Mm-hmm.
What kind of discussions have to take place to get a third stub out? I mean, it looks like we'd have to go through several property owners for that to work.
Well, so what we would require for the subdivision is they would actually just stub the road to their property. And then when these other lots develop or want to further their road or the road, they would again have to come in, make sure everything's up to city standards. But it's giving the option for those properties to, one, have access and not landlock them. So that's the biggest part. We wouldn't require them to put a road all the way up there on other people's property. They would
Understand.
have to do it.
Right, that makes sense. I'm just looking how it could be somewhat convoluted in the future, but
Yeah.
we're not worrying about the future. We're just looking at a rezone.
Well,
The,
I mean, they could put a road, if it came down to it, through here and stub it. But I don't know when all of these lots would develop. That's the hardest part with looking to the future. We can have an idea, but designs change over the years. And not to mention, some properties might not even develop for many years.
Yeah, there are quite a few other properties in town that have stub outs or temporary turnarounds that either
Sure.
started out as kind of temporary and have ended up being not so temporary. And then there's like this one that she's pointing to right here on the screen
Right.
that has a four-way intersection that goes right through the middle of the property. And it's not probably any big surprise to anybody that that property hasn't developed out because it's just not developable. The roads that would be required to go through there are such that it would be extremely expensive and eat up all of the usable land really just in roads. So
So
yeah,
kind of
that's-
like how Paris Hills looks right now, or even Deer Crest, how the road just kind of stops and you can see this
Right.
temporary turnaround.
Right.
That's pretty much how it would be.
Okay.
so while we don't have control over what the adjacent property owner does and when they develop out, what we can do is make sure that they have sufficient access to the property adjacent so that in the future, if and when they do decide to develop, they've got a way to do that.
Right. We just give them the possibility and the opportunity. We don't design it for them. We can't do anything like that.
No, I understand that. So the address up there to the right, the 3485 and 3463, looks like there's a dirt road or a stub or something. Could that be potential for a road, or is that too narrow?
It's
That
too
was
narrow.
actually too narrow. It's
Too
a right
narrow.
of way.
It's just a driveway, really.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll let the developers worry about that when the time comes. Commissioners, any questions?
Jill, you said that you hadn't had any calls on that, but you had some calls about people concerned about other property being developed. So can you just
So
explain?
I changed a little bit of the notices to kind of help the residents have a little bit more information before coming to these meetings and kind of being blindsided, and kind of understand more so they can have their questions ready and know what they want to ask and everything ahead of time. So with that, I sent a map out that showed the general plan, and I highlighted where the property is. And a lot of people called concerned saying, well, my lot is the same color. Are you changing my lot? I said, no, it's just this property. There's nothing that we're changing on anybody else's lot. And they said, okay, well, then we're fine. We don't care.
Okay, okay.
Hey, Bill, did you have any other questions from citizens?
Haven't heard anything, just that one from Ann asking about the detention pond.
Okay, can we
What's
address that? Alicia, the retention?
Absolutely. At this point, because we haven't sent this to engineering from our engineer, that will end up going where we all decide, between our engineers and your city people, we'll all sit down and basically what we're going to do is what we have to do on where it goes.
So the developer is aware that he needs to retain the water from the hardscape from his development.
Yes.
So on that, like just that little preliminary plan with the lots, you are potentially losing what, maybe 2 or 3 lots out of that because of the stub and a detention.
Roughly, yes.
Right. So even though it's showing, I think it was showing like 21 homes, it's probably going to be more around.
It will be less than that. And that's just a rough draft, like Jill was explaining.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
we turn in that application, we kind of have to say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing, but we're not quite sure if you're going to allow us. So
The answer
let's
is no,
start
we're
here.
not going to allow you to do just exactly like that.
And we're okay with that too. We're used to that.
It's gonna be awesome though. It's gonna be awesome.
We actually appreciate the visual because it's easier to have the visual and then,
Absolutely.
things taken out than not have anything and try and figure it out.
Absolutely.
So it's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very helpful.
And just so you guys know kind of what the process is, once they do bring us an application, we will actually go through everything and then have them come in, sit down and explain some things. I mean, because we have LID with the state and kind of have them be on the same page as us on the idea of it all. And then we'll go back and forth with plans, changing things, making things sure that things are up to city standards before it will even come back to you guys as a subdivision application. So that will all be worked out.
Fair enough. If there's no public comments, then I'll entertain a motion at this time that we close the public hearing.
Nothing on the YouTube channel, so that's it.
Thank you. Do I have that motion?
Motion to close the public meeting.
Public hearing and a second?
I can second that.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we're back to discussion within the commissioners. Any other comments or concerns? Commissioners, are we okay? Are we comfortable?
Yeah, I don't have any at this time.
Okay, if nobody has anything, then we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve or deny the rezone from A2 to RE15 at 3479 North, 1000 West, parcel 17-062-0042. And the applicant is RW Custom Home.
I think it was 0046.
What did I say?
42.
Well, don't listen to me.
Okay. Anyway, we know which one.
You're good. Thank you. Thank you. 46. Do I hear that motion? One?
Well, yeah, I'll make the
Who's
motion.
gonna do it? There we go.
Seems that everything is so clearly specified in the way the brief is written that there's not much that can go wrong, and it has built-in provisions to correct just about everything.
And I agree. And I like how Jill's she's got her list, her checklist, and shows everything's in compliance. And there again, this is just the rezone. This is nothing else. So Jim, are you making a motion to approve or deny? Jim?
I'll do it. I just always do it wrong.
No,
All you
don't.
really have to do is say so moved.
So move like that. I don't know. I just said it wrong once and then I got dirty looks. So I was like, I'll just never do it.
Thank you. Ashley has made a motion that we approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion to approve.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And any approved or any disapproved, I'm sorry. Okay, motion carries. Item number 2 is a discussion and decision on a rezone. Bill, this is a public hearing as well, correct?
It is, and I guess I should note for the record that this is a recommendation to the city council. It's not a final decision by any stretch. So your
Understand.
recommendation, your motion, Ashley, was to recommend approval by the city council.
Thank you.
You can't do it wrong, Ashley.
I would have proved it by myself if I could have. I like the plan. I'll miss the horses there as I walk by, but that's good.
All right. So let's entertain a motion to open a public hearing on a discussion for the rezone from A2 to RE15. The location is east side of Highway 89, parcels 19-014-0055, and all the others that you can see. The applicant is Jeff Bolingbroke.
Make a motion that we open to a public hearing as read.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second that motion.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Jill.
Okay. So let me pull this up.
I think that Jeff should thank me for going first to answer all those questions for the same thing, so he doesn't get the same ones.
Okay. So first, I wanted to show you where it is. So if you can see, here's the map. Here's Pleasant View Drive, 1710 West and 1725. Here's that Capstone Academy. So the property he's requesting to be rezoned is this parcel, this big one, and this one. So it's currently A2. Let me move over to another screen. So it's currently A2. Jeff is the applicant, and this one also meets the general plan, which his request is RE15, and that would be the 3 units per acre. Again, it fits. So the city has no issue on that. And here's his concept drawing. It's by hand. So when this comes through for a subdivision application, we will make sure it's city standards, you know, with the width and everything, and the subdivision altogether, stub outs, water, you name it. We'll look at it when that comes through. But right now the city doesn't have any issues with the rezone, and I have not heard any concerns or complaints regarding this request.
Okay, the applicant is here, and Jeff, we'll ask that you recuse yourself for this presentation.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no public comments, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
I don't see anything
Unless-
on the YouTube channel or any comments there. So I'm still showing our faithful 7 people watching, of which I'm one. So there's 6 people besides myself that are watching, and one of them may even be my wife. She likes this kind of thing. Hi, sweetheart.
Oh, how sweet for our meeting. Okay, let's have a motion then to close public hearing.
Well, I can try, but I might do it wrong. Okay, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing portion of this.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second that. Oh, go ahead.
I'll second it. Sorry,
All
Alicia.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Commissioners, any questions for Jeff? The applicant is here, obviously. Same concerns, obviously, Jill and Bill and Jeff. There's no, right now, with your hand-drawn conception, it's a great plan, but it doesn't show a lot of access. And I don't know if you can't access off Highway 89. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, no, they will be limited on their access off of Highway 89. So yeah.
Can we go back to the map? If we're
Yeah,
talking
can we
about this?
go back to it?
You want the concept or the actual physical map?
The
The concept.
both,
You want both?
one and then the other.
Okay,
You always make things difficult.
so here's the concept.
Okay.
So there's
So,
89,
okay.
and I'm assuming, I want to say that's,
So can I jump in there right there? Because I'm going to jump in as a member of the old Transportation Committee. I don't remember there being a connection there for 89 all the way up to Pleasant View Drive. As that being a connection. So Bill, will you help me out? Because I don't remember that being a connection to 89 with our transportation connection. So they're basically stubbing into somebody's driveway.
Yeah,
So-
so what we're gonna have to do is look at the nature of that right of way or that driveway or whatever that is up there on the north end of the property. The long and short of it is going to be that if they cannot connect through there, they're going to have a cul-de-sac that's longer than 500 feet. So they're either gonna have to negotiate with the adjacent property owner to get something worked out that way, or provide their own road on their own property.
And therefore, the other part of that, if you look at that driveway, the other part of the Transportation Committee was to eliminate as many Y accesses. And therefore, that was the same, the reason for some of the roundabouts that were created in the city. That's a heavy Y entering into 89. And that would be a major no-no, because now we're dumping a subdivision onto a Y onto 89. And that would be a major concern from that committee at that time.
Yeah, for sure. And so these are all things that they're gonna have to work out with UDOT. The long and short of it is that if they can't get that access, the subdivision probably dies, but also they just won't be able to get as many lots as they otherwise would.
And can I ask why they can't get a connection to 89?
so UDOT owns the road. That's why.
UDOT has
There's other
entered in,
connections. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Other roads are connected to 89, and you know what I'm trying to say? So is it like there can be only so many?
yeah,
UDOT usually typically limits the number of accesses onto their road.
UDOT has entered into an agreement with the city to limit the number of accesses and where those go. They can't eliminate them altogether, even if they would. So it's a question of how do we get traffic in and around the city and develop out these smaller roads that only attach to Highway 89 at certain strategic locations, so that we don't have intersections every 20 feet or 200 feet.
Right, because that's dangerous. I mean,
Yeah.
I can understand that. So you're saying that you're trying to sub up that little road to Pleasant View Drive.
That's right.
And that's
then
one
you
thing
have to
we'll
remember,
look at with the subdivision.
we just gave an access to Capstone that's not directly across the street, but a short distance across the street. And that causes, so we have to look at how many access points will they allow that straight across the street. So we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Correct.
Can I address that?
Please.
So
Sure.
we met Jim Flint with Hanson and Associates from Brigham City. He's the engineer I got helping me working on this. And he and I met with UDOT a little over a month ago about this, and they had no concerns with this access other than it would just have to be built to UDOT standards from 89. And he specifically mentioned doing that access exactly like Capstone, the Capstone access across the street, because he said there was a far enough distance between the two access points that there was no concern there. Obviously, we still have to go through the whole process but the initial meeting was the access should be fine as long as it's built to UDOT standards.
And they would require you to go so far north before you turn, or so far east before you turn into the subdivision, correct?
So
If you use that access, that road that's existing, is that the access you're talking about?
yeah, I think it's actually Budge Lane.
Okay, so they would not allow you to go right and then right into a subdivision. They would allow you to go right and then travel a distance to the east before you enter the subdivision.
Correct. Yeah, I think it was like 100 feet or something like that.
That sounds right.
Burgess Lane is further down.
Well, on Weaver County recorders, it's actually listed as Budge Lane too. So there's two of them. That one on the south and then one on the north.
Yep, so this is Budge Lane, and I'd have to, I don't know who actually owns this right of way. I'd have to pull the parcels, which when that subdivision comes in, we dive in to see about easements, right of ways and things like that. So when he does come in for the subdivision, we would make a requirement that we would have that permission or letter or permit from a copy of it from UDOT saying that he is allowed to do that.
So is the theory then that that road goes all the way through to Pleasant View Drive?
Eventually, it looks like.
It looks like someone's put either some type of imperviated surface.
It's a driveway
to
right
here.
now. It's a
Right.
driveway.
And then this looks like it's a dirt road. So
It is it's a dirt road that goes right to Himmelwright's driveway.
Right.
And then
So,
it's gated off. It's gated off because it's a driveway down into the Ballas driveway at the bottom.
So
there
that is
can-
something that we would look at and make sure everything's taken care of when that subdivision does come in.
What about lot like 1635? Has anyone thought about who owns that, and maybe they want to put a connection in there?
It's the Budges.
It's the Budges, and I'm pretty sure, isn't there a house right here?
No, she's to the left of that.
Oh,
1645.
Yeah, so the question I think is being presented, is there enough room to have a 60-foot road? Bill, is that correct? Is that what's required?
Yeah, it would be a 60-foot right of way that was what would be required. These are all technical details that we're going to have to work out. Jill, if you could go back to the little sketch though.
yep.
Jill, were all of those people notified of this tonight?
Correct. They were notified by the notices. That's part of the 500-foot radius notice that's required. It's required that they send me envelopes that are stamped, and I verify. Half the time I usually send them the list, and then I send those out personally, and we notice it on the state website, the newspaper, and our website and our boards. So I mean, it's noticed everywhere.
So if you'll notice on the way this, the road to the west moves up to the north and then kind of cuts back a little bit to the east, how he's got it drawn in there. Obviously, this is very schematic and just a sketch, but if that road is not, or the right of way is not enough there for that little road, they'll have to eliminate that northwesterly property and use that as part of their road. And that will affect the way that the rest of the subdivision is laid out necessarily. So he's got it drawn back, maybe it looks like 100 feet, 150 feet back from the road. Just to give you an idea of how far back that currently is. It's conceivable that that would just bend and curve back towards the west instead of how he's got it curved back towards the east and turn into a regular 60-foot right of way. It just depends on what that road width is and who it's dedicated to. And as I stated, if they can't get it to work, then they either don't get the number of lots that they wanted, or this subdivision just kind of doesn't work or goes away. So, and I'm sure Jeff knows that.
Yep.
And I don't think, Jeff, you're really looking into, you're not entertaining taking the road all the way up to Pleasant View Drive. You're concerned about getting access into your subdivision.
Correct.
Okay. And it looks like the width should be fine with that. Okay, any other questions? Leisha, I guess the same concerns. You'll make sure there's water retention and
It's not Leisha's, it would be Jeff's. Alicia is the,
Yes.
I'll be glad to help, Jeff. Don't worry.
Oh.
That's very
For some
generous of you,
reason, Alicia,
Alicia.
I was thinking you was with an engineering firm.
no,
So let me make sure I'm clear. The main concern is really the access. We've got a 60-foot road going in, but there really is no way to do a in and then out.
And to follow up on that, I don't think that we can move forward with granting the subdivision because she makes a good point. There's no in and out. And so it's a big giant. But so there's no need to hurry and go ahead with the subdivision because there's nothing we can be done with it because we don't have an answer. Who owns the right of way on that driveway? Is it city
Right.
easement?
no, that's what would
So we
come
don't
with the
have any answers.
subdivision.
So
This is-
there's no need, in my opinion, there's no need to vote on it because we don't have the answers to make any decisions tonight.
So we're not
This
voting
isn't a
tonight.
subdivision, this is
Yeah,
just.
we're not voting on a
rezone.
subdivision tonight.
The
This is just a-
subdivision hasn't even came through yet.
No, excuse me,
Just the
a
rezone,
zone
Andy.
change. There's no need for a zone change because we don't even have the answers on making a change on anything that's even feasible. There's no feasibility for that zone change because he can't do anything with it.
So the
Correct me if I'm
question,
wrong, Bill, this is just a zone change, so we're not making sure that a subdivision is feasible. We're just saying that in these lots, it is, the city agrees that this is okay to have this type of zone here. When they come through for a subdivision, they have to engineer it to city standards to make sure everything XYZ is taken care of. Other than that, and if it still doesn't work, they don't get their subdivision, but the zone is there.
So the only good reason for that zone change would be to add tax.
It actually doesn't do anything with taxes, I believe, because if it's agricultural or residential, that part doesn't, we have no control over the taxes. It's if there's a building on there, then the county actually takes care of that with those building permits and whatnot. Other than that, it doesn't change the price of the property unless it goes from residential to commercial.
so the question tonight really isn't, is a subdivision going to work in this location? The question tonight, and it isn't even about a question of feasibility or on the applicant's ability to get a return on their investment, although, you know, certainly we'd like it if he did. The question tonight is this the right time for this property to be changed in its zoning from A2 to what is it, RE20? Is that what they're looking for? RE15?
They're looking for RE15.
RE15.
So that's the question before us. The subdivision questions are technical and they are myriad, and you know, this is a first hurdle that he has to go over. But if the planning commission and ultimately the city council decides, you know what, this is in the master plan to be RE15 type zone, and we're going to go ahead and allow it to change zoning to an RE15 zone, then it's up to the developer to figure out all those technical details, to work with UDOT and to figure out detention and utilities and all of those things. And if whether or not it pencils for the developers is completely up to the developer. So the feasibility is a tough question. Now, again, like I stated before, if the developer cannot get an in and an out, then that pretty much kills the project. That's on the developer to work with their design and with adjacent property owners to get that figured out, to make sure that there is sufficient right-of-way to get in and out of the property. At this point, the developer hasn't put a whole lot of time and effort into that because right now the zone doesn't support it anyway. So this is the first step in figuring that out. Yeah, after the entitlements are set up with the zone change, then is the time that they go and spend the money to do the engineering and figure it out. Because right now the answer is no. right? We're trying to change the zone so that the answer becomes, well, you figure it out.
So
let's
Andy, I
do that.
agree. I kind of agree with what you're saying. I'm sorry. Ashley, go ahead.
I was just saying. So let's do that. I feel like we're talking in circles, like questions, which are good, but you've told us time and time again, we just need to say yes or no to the zone change, and then those questions can be answered, correct?
Yeah.
So
I
guess
did get a
I'm just
comment
saying-
here. I want to read this in. I've got a
Yep.
comment from Clark Broadbent. Thank you for watching, Clark. Says Susan Hemmelwright. I hope I'm reading that right. It looks like there might be a typo there, but Susan Hemmelwright owns the dirt road. That's the
Yeah.
comment that I'm seeing on YouTube right now. Clark Broadbent.
Great.
One thing that I'm missing, and it's kind of the overall view, it seems that the intent is not to change the subdivision into greater lots, but what is the basic advantage of going from the current designation to the RE15? What is gained by that if you don't change lot size?
Well, it's not lot size right now. Right now, it's just agricultural.
But I believe that in the brief, it was mentioned that there's no intent to change the proposed lot size. So it's mainly just a rezoning, and I don't fully understand the difference between the two, what the advantage of that is.
So by rezoning it, you're allowing them to have lots as small as 1/3 acre, but they would have to come through the subdivision. And it allows for more people to come in and build their homes and have home occupations or anything else that they may want where they live. And that's ultimately
Okay.
what we want.
Okay, so
And while
it was lack of my understanding what the previous zone provided.
You are fine.
Hey,
So
I've
Jeff,
got,
I have-
I've got a question on A2. Do they have animals or anything on that property now?
No.
Okay,
Here,
because my only comment was if they had animals on it, we changed the zoning and it can't work for a subdivision, and then somebody wants to go back and have animals, then it's been zoned out of that. And you've got a piece of farm property that basically can't be used as a subdivision right now. So then once we change the zoning, then the animals can't be on it. I mean, what would be the use for it after that? And the only reason I'm bringing that up is once we change the zoning, then we're taking away some use of that property if the subdivision can't go in, right? Or am I wrong?
You're,
I see your point.
I think we all see what you're saying, but currently we're just asking for a zone change. And so nothing changes until a development actually is proposed to go in. So the
No,
land will be.
she
used.
is correct, though.
I see what you're saying. So if it doesn't happen and they end up selling to another person that wants to have animals, no, I see what you're saying. It makes sense. They could come in and change the zone back.
Jeff, let's take Andy's point of view and just say, with all the unknowns, would it be better to ask for the zone change when you have some of these answers, or some of the answers to the questions that are being addressed tonight?
Well, I mean, as a developer, I can't move forward unless I know I have the zone change, right? I mean, I don't invest my money into trying to design, engineer a subdivision that works. I'm sure that Alicia with RW Customs the same way. If they didn't get the zone change, they're not going to invest the money into engineering into that property. So if I can't get the zone change, then you're right, I walk away from it. I think, this is the first step, and really, like to Jill's point, is all I'm doing is asking for a zone change. All of those other steps come with the subdivision development. And if we grant the zone change, and somebody wants to put cattle on there and it's out of compliance, and then I guess I get cited, but currently, at least as of a couple of weeks ago, there were no animals on the property.
Oh, we definitely come in guns blazing for cattle.
No, I was just curious what the use of the property was now, because like I said,
Failed,
Here,
just,
Andy says there's deer on the property,
yeah.
Um,
Well, welcome to Pleasant View.
right?
There's
So
deer on my property.
I motion to approve zone change. Sorry.
I love that Ashley's taking this so seriously. She's in the
Actually, we
zone
haven't
there.
asked for it. We haven't asked for that yet, but.
I
thank you for
know.
the-
Why not? Okay,
She's
sorry.
calling the question.
I'll calm down. I'll just sit. And,
She's calling the question.
So here's the bill. You'll have to help me out with this one. If we do the R2 change or the A2 to RE15, and Jeff tries as hard as he can, nothing's going to work. The subdivision just isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And somebody wants to dry farm it or bring in animals, then it's back to changing from an RE15 to A2.
Well, that's a little bit of a trick because the zone is currently what it is and the use is what it currently is. The use can continue in a legal non-conforming use status. What we would not be able to do is change it to, gosh, I don't know. RE15 is a pretty restrictive zoning district. It would be if the use changed, that's what would trigger the need to comply with the zoning. So the
Wouldn't
current
it
uses
change
could
with the
continue.
owner, though?
it'll be hard to
So-
push it back because now it meets the general plan.
Right. So the ownership doesn't change the use. It's the use that matters. So for example, if you bought a gas station and the zone underneath the gas station changed from to allowing gas stations to not, they don't make you tear down the gas station just because you bought it.
That's right.
It's the use that triggers the thing.
So once someone decides that they want to put a bunch of homes and they do put their road in and that all happens, then the possibility of having cattle or horses goes away.
Right.
But if nothing happens, then the use would still be the same.
Agricultural uses are kind of tricky in the state of Utah anyway. They're very protected and rightfully so. It's both a nod to our agrarian roots as well as the agricultural industry and the lobby that's there. And that's important, you know, we've got to protect our farms and our things like that. But this kind of circumstance, I don't see it being a problem.
Okay.
me either.
Any other concerns or discussion? Okay, then we'll ask for.
I do have, I'm sorry, I do have one more comment that's just come in here.
Okay.
On the YouTube channel. Mindy Mortensen has commented and said, my family has lived here since 1976. We hate to see the rural aspect of Pleasant View going away. And then she follows up with a question, have you thought about the access onto Highway 89? I think we have had a pretty good discussion about access onto Highway 89. So Mindy, I would recommend that you go back and watch some of that previous discussion. The long and short of it is that the access onto Highway 89, because it is a UDOT facility, will have to be worked out through and with UDOT when that time comes.
And for the record, Mindy lives at the top of the horseshoe to the right of the horseshoe.
Okay.
So really, Jeff, could I ask Jeff a question?
Sure.
And then to get onto Highway 89, I'm trying to remember what the map looked like. Really, all you're lacking is that agreement with UDOT to give an access
Yeah, we have to go through the formal application process to request that access, and then they, you know, the way I understood it was they would then tell us to what standards that access would have to be built. So,
Mhm. So,
But
okay,
they have given you, yes, that access is available and will allow you to develop it.
well, not an official yes, but they didn't, you know, just in our, you know, half-hour meeting that we had with them, that they did say that was we could improve that road just exactly like the one across the street. It would have to be built to the exact same standards to access that property. Because they actually have, I believe, if I remember right, they have an easement or something like that. There's a public easement up that road. Um,
And I don't think it's UDOT's. I think it is
yeah,
these
not UDOT,
residents.
but because I
So-
think they told me they had to come around the corner so many feet to meet Utah to meet UDOT standards, and then from there it would have to be just city standards the rest of the way up. And I can't remember what the distance was, but Jim Flint knows. But I don't. He deals with us a lot more than I do.
And when that comes, we will make sure that whoever does own this right of way, or this, I mean, the Helms, I think that's how you pronounce it, Helm right, or
Himmel right.
Kimball, right?
they will be part of that discussion, because it would be that road, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that he would be using or improving. So, I mean, they would be part of the discussion when that does happen.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Ready to entertain a motion to approve or deny the recommendation to the city council on this parcel.
I make a motion that we table this discussion until we get further information from on the road, and we have further information on who owns it and the UDOT connection, and how we would have an in and out. I would like to know more information on how we would access that, and if we would make a motion before we make a motion on the continuation on the change of zoning.
But why would Jeff spend money doing that if we're not going to change the zone?
Andy, all those concerns that you have will come later. So I don't see, I mean, again, go back to what we're here for. It's a zoning change. You know, all of that other stuff has to be worked out later, but you have to do things in steps. And this is the first step. And then then all of those issues, the access, who owns the right of way, all that other information comes second, comes later. It's not what we're here to discuss today. It's concerns that we need to have.
We're not even given all the information to know if this is a viable project.
It's a viable project. It has access to 89. Where that access is, doesn't matter. All it is a zone change.
How does it have access? We don't know that, Nate.
That entire length of 89, that's for them to work out, not for us.
But
What are you worried about having happen?
The city has an agreement with UDOT, and we have not been provided that information as a planning commission, what that access code or what that agreement is. It was not provided to us tonight.
Okay.
That's
How
not
does that
part
have to do with the zone, whether it's R15 or A2?
Laugh all you want, Jeff. I have made a motion on the table. If that's the way you want to play it, Jeff. I made a motion on the table. I'm sorry, Jeff. You are a presenter tonight, not person on the planning commission. You are a presenter. I made a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to table this discussion until further developments are presented in a way that makes sense to rezone. Is that correct, Andy?
I would like, we can get further information.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? No second? Okay, is there another motion? that
A
could be
motion that we
entertained?
approve the zoning change.
Recommending
From
approval.
RE 15, okay, do we have a
Recom-
second on that?
Are you asking for a second on the motion to approve the zoning change
Yes.
on the recommendation? I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the zone from A2 to RE 15, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? And we'll do this roll call by who's in attendance.
Please.
Jim,
Approve.
Julie,
Did you?
Andy? She said
She
approve.
approved.
Okay.
Andy?
Nay.
Who else do we have?
Alicia.
Ashley?
Or
Alicia?
Ashley.
Both?
This
Approved.
happens every time.
Huh?
This happens every time Alicia and I try to talk at the same time. So Alicia, you go first.
Approve.
And then I approve.
Jim, you said yes or no, or approve or deny?
Who's that? Did you say Jim?
Yes, I didn't
Yes,
hear yours.
I approve.
Okay,
And do I vote on this one?
Yes.
Will? Okay, I approve.
okay. So Nate, you approve as well? I know
Yes.
you made the motion. Okay.
What do you
Okay,
have?
I
What's your-
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes, or 6 recommend approval and 1 does not.
Okay, so the motion carries that we make a recommendation to city council to approve the rezone from RA2 to RE 15 with all the requirements that are on the recommendation that staff has provided.
We will make sure that goes with the subdivision as it comes through, you bet.
Okay, so the motion carries.
Up is really sad, but it's a good movie.
We will now go to other business, communications. I would like to have a conversation on this if we could. I mean, I felt the passion in Andy's discussion and I felt the passion in Jeff's request. So as commissioners, I think we do need to understand that our role is to make sure that the recommendation meets the master plan, the city plan. And if it does, then going back to what Nate said, this is just step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Those things all have to be resolved, and they will be through engineering. And we'll certainly see this again. And as Bill mentioned, if it cannot be changed, or if the subdivision cannot work, yes, it's RE 15, but the current use, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, the current use will maintain or will be maintained until such a time that a subdivision is approved with all the recommendations from engineering. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
You
so,
know, you look at it, the fact is, from a development standpoint, there is time and money that has to be put into things to, and it's like developers don't want to go ahead and put that time and money into things if they don't feel that the zone will support that. But I understand sometimes it puts us in a position like on leashes, that was an easy one to do because you've got the roads going in and out, and it meets really not only the zone change, but it shouldn't be too far off from meeting what a subdivision requires. Whereas Jeff's, it doesn't, it's not as clear cut as that. And yet the RE15 zone does meet what's in the general plan. RE15 is a reasonable use of that land. You know, at this point, we're trusting that he can move forward and get that access. And I don't know why UDOT wouldn't work with him to give access there. Anyway.
And I want to make it out there, put it out there that if it was in an area that we knew we had a lot of issues, or for example, say it was up by our wells, like clear up, who knows, on our water protective area, that would be in your information, because that is part of the whole rezone, where
It's a
because you have
sensitive
to look
land
at
issue.
all of everything on that. Where this area, yeah, it could be developed. I don't know how they're going to have to design it. It's going to have to be up to city standards, and they have to make sure UDOT's okay with it. But we're just, and that's why, Andy, you didn't have the UDOT agreement there, because I mean, the idea of having an RE15 does meet the general plan. And I understand where you're coming from, because you want to make sure everything works. So you don't, I mean, so Jeff doesn't waste all of his money. I get exactly what you're saying, but a lot of developers don't do that because they have to have so much money up front with all the designs and things like that. So going forward, they usually just do the rezone to see if it's even possible that the city will allow them to have those type of lots, or it meets their general plan.
And I'm perfectly fine with it being RE15. It matches. It's a perfect spot for it. All of that meets the general plan. But from the transportation spots, the way it meets up UDOT, it seems like we're forcing things that don't meet, and it doesn't look like they have done the due diligence to bring it before this committee, and this commission hasn't got all the information. And what's the harm of us being allowed to ask a little more information and waiting one more meeting and getting the rest of the information? That's, I think sometimes we're in such a hurry just to say yes, 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 that we're allowed to ask. That's, I was taught we're allowed to go ahead and ask. I have no problem with it going to RE15. That's the general plan, but we're supposed to ask questions. And that's all I thought was, it's our right to go ahead and ask for a few more questions to make sure, hey, save him the time and the hassle going down the road. We're supposed to ask questions.
No, and I appreciate that. And I've actually made notes, so that way when it does come through, we do look at that. And I really do appreciate your comments, because what you might see, I can, you know, as soon as he brings it in, I can make sure, yep, this is an issue. That can be one of our first comments. So I do appreciate you asking questions, and I appreciate even residents coming up with questions, so we can make sure we look at every aspect possible.
I don't know if I'm interpreting this correctly, but it seems that when you read the brief toward the end, there are so many provisions for correction that you've got an awful lot of latitude to make things right before they get finalized.
For the subdivision? Yes.
We have to be careful about what we ask for and when. Asking for an entire drainage scheme, for example, is probably not feasible at this point of the entitlement process. The reason for that is because it involves a significant financial investment on the part of the developer and the property owner that probably exceeds our authority at this point to ask for. The question regarding access onto the road, it's a binary answer to this, Andy, and you know this. If he can't get access to the property, if he can't get out onto Highway 89, he's going to have to go out onto Pleasant View Drive. And if he can't get over to Pleasant View Drive by working something out with the adjacent property owners, it's probably a non-starter for him. Now, Jeff's pretty savvy, and I don't think he would have asked for this zone change if he didn't think that either Highway 89 or Pleasant View Drive were in the works for him, or if it didn't pencil for him to work either one of those solutions out. That's a financial burden that he's going to have to take on himself. This is the first step. And if this answer had been tonight, if the answer tonight had been no, there's no point in him doing any engineering on the project. There's no point in really even buying the property at this point, because it's no, and it's going to stay no, right? There would be some sort of insurmountable issue that is related to the use of the property that, you know, like Jill pointed out, maybe it's a sensitive lands issue, or there's a fault line underneath the property that nobody knew about, or there's a large wetlands there. And so those are things that you would say no to. Access on the Highway 89 or a transportation issue, those are things that can and will be worked out as we go forward. So I feel comfortable with the way the conversation went, as well as the way the vote came down.
Well, and also we have to remember, this is a recommendation to city council. So even if we would have voted no, Jeff still could have went to city council and sought an overturn. Is that correct?
Correct.
Bill?
Yeah, that's right.
So I do appreciate all the concerns and what has been said, but I am very comfortable that our city staff make sure that all requirements are met. In fact, Jeff, you can see they're all listed there. I mean, everything is black and white. You've got an uphill battle, no question about it. But we're just giving you we're making a recommendation that you proceed with that uphill battle. And we'll certainly see this again for an approval for the subdivision.
Unless the council says no, and then you probably
Unless the
won't.
council says no. Thank
Correct.
you. Okay, so I'm comfortable with that. Are we okay?
Andy, I don't want you to stop asking questions. I really do appreciate those.
He knows, Andy knows. He's very professional. He makes sure, and I, like I said, I felt his passion, and I even agreed with him. I don't know if it's the right time to bring this forward because there's so many hurdles, but that's not really our responsibility. That's the developers and the engineers. We're just approving a zone change that fits the master plan. Okay. Any other communication with the commission that we need to discuss tonight?
I have a quick question, and I
Please.
don't know how to, like, where to ask this, but so how do we go about, so with this whole COVID-19 thing going on, and like people are wanting to be more self-sufficient, and I know a lot of people I live around with, they want to, like, eggs are hard to come by, for instance, eggs. But because we're on 1/3 of an acre, a lot of people can't have chickens. What if we bring up to talk about public hearing, whatever we need to do to talk about allowing, instead of, like, I know 1/2 acres, the reason they can have chickens is because they also can have lots of other animals and they're zoned for that. But 1/3 of an acre is not zoned for any animals. What if we put in something like 6 to 10 chickens on 1/3 of an acre? So
What
that,
you'll want to look at is also the setbacks, because the reason why RE15s usually don't have, they don't have the ability to have chickens is because of the setbacks of these chicken coops. They have to be so far from the road, they have to be so far from
Right.
property lines
Property lines,
for
right.
smells and things like that. I mean, so if you guys don't have that conversation,
Just how do we have that conversation? Because I'm thinking maybe 6 chickens would give enough eggs to support your own family. And what if this thing does continue, or what if something like this happens again and people can't provide for themselves with, I mean, just eggs seems something like, I don't know. I just would like to have eggs for my family. So
I
personally,
understand.
I enjoy this conversation. Like,
And
and my
move
husband
into
won't
it-
buy me a
move
coop
into
until
it.
it's in law because he's such
Move
a
into
good
an
law.
RE20. Move into an RE20.
Yeah, RA20 it's allowed. So I kind of like the discussion, but I have neighbors that are in an RE15 zone and they have bees and chickens. I think the concern, if nobody complains, then nobody complains.
It is, our code enforcement is code complaint driven.
I live next door to someone that's an A2 and they have chickens and they come over and dig up over $100 worth of my flowers. And I complain to the city and nothing happens. I send pictures to the city and nothing happens. The next day they come and dig up another $100 worth of flowers. And they're allowed to have the chickens, even though the coops are right next to the city canal and the streets and break the illegal code enforcement. So
Did the chickens leave you a thank you note, Andy?
they don't leave me chickens or they don't leave me eggs or anything else, but people move into the right residence where they're allowed to, or they live into areas where they're supposed to be. So those that want to be in RE15 or RE20s or RA2s. So.
Well, Pleasant View also has an ordinance where we can eliminate nuisance animals at this time.
Ooh.
So,
Andy, turn those into chicken nuggets.
yeah.
I like that.
Fried chicken.
I would be careful, guys. This is still a recorded public viewed meeting. FYI, it's on YouTube.
We need to be careful too about how we protect how people provide for their families. And if you do live in an A2 and your zone is zoned for animals, you know, family food production is a long tradition, both in the United States as well as in our community. And people having chickens it's a good thing.
Yes.
Now, if they go into your yard and tear up your landscaping, then maybe it's not such a good thing. But you know, in Morgan County, when I was up there, we had a very nuanced conversation about fence in versus fence out, and who has the responsibility to keep animals either on or off other people's property. And that's a scab we don't want to pick here in our city. But you would think that by going over and reaching out to your neighbors, Andy, you guys could figure something out.
We do have rules and regulations in the city though.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
So Ashley, I guess to your
I guess I'm just
question,
trying to say, could we have the conversation to say 6 chickens, but you have to have it like this, and this. That's all I'm saying. Can we do that? Because my husband won't break the law and have me have a little coop with 6 chickens until it
You bring people out of the woodwork on both.
is something that is acceptable. And we're not moving our house anytime soon to a big, like, we can't afford it. So how does it make it affordable for people to provide for their own families for that kind of thing? Like, I can do a garden, but I don't have any protein sources.
I see what you're saying. But like Andy was saying, we got to have a line somewhere. And if we open it up, it opens up to a lot of other possibilities and other issues and health issues because of the coops. That's why we have those setbacks, is also for health issues.
And Ashley, I'm not trying to be rotten, but I'm trying to just point out, we have had some of those discussions in the past every time we talk about the code, and it brings out both sides. And that's, you know, she points out a good point, is somewhere there's got to be a line drawn where people, they either move into this because they can do that, or they move into this because they don't want to live next to that. And that's why I use my example that I am next to that. You know, so you have people that'll come out of the woodwork kind of voting for both. So
Right. Well, because you're saying that these people are allowed it, but they're still being like disrespectful and not following the rules, where I'm saying,
Well, but-
let's
but
make rules.
certainly-
Like, I can't
but-
have my chickens
but
go out.
if we moved into this RE20 or RE15, not expecting to live next to chickens, and then all of a sudden the code changed and people don't expect to have it. Now all of a sudden every other neighbor has it, but I didn't expect to have that when I moved into it. You see what I'm saying?
I see that.
But
I don't want a bunch of roosters and
I
that
also
crowing
see
next
that
to
I
me.
haven't been able to buy eggs in like 5 weeks. So I
So
see that.
actually, you're bringing up a good point. I mean, our whole world is changing from this coronavirus.
Yeah.
And so we might have a discussion in the future to change the ordinance to
Rancho
allow.
Markets has them, by the way.
Yeah.
What?
Rancho Markets down on Washington.
But I don't go out of my house.
Yeah.
I can't. Like, I would kill my mother. You know what I'm saying? If she got it, she is susceptible. So we just live in our house and sanitize things that come in, and that's the best we can do. I can't even walk down the street and go ask a neighbor who's selling them for $3 a dozen, because I was not willing to take that risk for my family members.
I understand. I think a lot of us have someone like that
I agree.
in our homes.
Yeah.
So there again, that could be a
Hey.
discussion for,
Keith, or
yes.
I'm just going to chime in one thing. I understand the plight of saying, well, we moved here with the intent of not having certain things. And I know that zones, guys, just a second. Sawyer, mute it for a second. Sorry, I'm in the front room with my kids. But sometimes that, I guess by that same methodology, if you move somewhere and there's an open field behind your house, that's how it was when you got there, but then things change and people don't like that either. And I know that zones are there for a reason and to help certain things, but I think that there's always an option and should definitely be strongly considered. And if somebody, especially on the planning commission or whatever, has an idea, it should be open for discussion of things evolve, things change. Just because it was there when you moved in that way or whatever, the needs of the society changes, the needs of the community changes. Nothing is ever set in stone. Everything is fluid. It always is. And it has to be. That's in my opinion, the way good government flows. Nothing.
So Sarah, what does that look like? As a planning commission, we just have the discussion that we want to change the ordinance because
Yes,
there's a.
and then you make the recommendation to the city council if that's,
Right.
if you feel it's appropriate. Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
We can
I'm
put
just
some
asking
language
for-
together.
I'm just asking for that discussion. I don't even,
Yeah.
like I said, bring on the questions. Let's bring on the rules that we'd have to make that acceptable for neighbors. That's all I'm saying. Like, let's make something work. Like, okay, 4 chickens.
And
You know
I
what I'm
think
saying? Like,
I think that's
small
appropriate.
coop.
It's
I can
absolutely
do some
appropriate.
research and come up with some language, like Bill said, and kind of have a layout of what's possible and why we have to have so much of a setback for whatnot. I can get a lot of that information and then I can present it to you in like a couple
And-
weeks or in a month.
And with the notices that you put out, that gives the community an opportunity to show up in mass or not at all, whether or not they choose to care to say, no, we don't want this. But if you have a lot of the community who says, hey, this is not a bad idea, but you present both sides, that's what a planning commission's for, and a city council is to try to be objective and look at the pros and cons of how this will affect the city. Is
Well,
this
if you
where
come
we
out
wanna go?
saying like 6 to 10 chickens, because some chickens can die or get eaten by raccoons that are out. And you say the rules, like, and it has to be this setback, and they have to be in a coop, and they have, if you want them in your own garden, your garden has to be.
And one thing you'll need to remember,
Or whatever.
and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying, once you guys do approve something like that in an RE15, and then say in a couple of years you want to take it off, off the books. If they have it before you take it off and you take it off and then you complain, You
But that's
really
why we would
can't do
say
anything
rules.
about it.
Like
So
that's why
what
we would
I'm
put
saying.
in rules. Like what is
No,
the
but
most
you can-
restrictive we could have, but have chickens? Like, okay,
Right.
all these rules. Well,
So
you're
if
you're not following this rule. You have 11 chickens.
Right.
Then, because I
But
had
you-
neighbors who had them and they got complained about and they had to kick them out.
And who's gonna
Okay, so
enforce
it's
it? We can't even enforce our other rules.
Well, I know
would
people who have
I
been
think
enforced
that's a little
upon.
bit, I think that's a little bit broad. I think that some things do get missed, but I think that things are starting to be followed up a little bit better and things are, closer. Our city is a nanny city. We don't have a code enforcement officer. We rely on other people to let us know if something is not going the right way. And so I think to say that we never enforce anything is a little bit misguided. And I think that we need to be a little bit more careful about saying that, yes, some things do get missed. Yes, we can always improve. And again, to not do something because you don't, I think that all things should be considered. Just my thoughts. That otherwise, why have a planning commission or city council? You have to have these things come before you and have that discussion instead of just saying no right
So
away.
there again, what does that look like? Ashley would ask Jill to put it on the agenda and we would discuss it.
With
and
your
that's the starting
approval,
point.
because you're the planning commission chair, you need to approve the agenda with Bill and Jill. But if Ashley makes that request, that should be something that you guys should consider. It's not, I don't know if the rules are the same with city council, but if 2 city council members request something on the agenda, it's a done deal, whether the administration doesn't want it, wants it or not. Is it the same for planning commission, Jill and Bill?
Yes,
Are
they
the rules
can
the same that way?
Yeah,
Is it
they,
2 that you need?
No, it doesn't require two. The planning commission's a little bit more
Okay.
open that way
right.
because they're just a recommending body. And
Okay,
so, and I'm hearing a general consensus that it's something that's worth discussing anyway. So Jill and I can put something together for a code change and we can have a look at it and have it up, have a conversation about it.
That's all I ask. Thank you.
You bet.
And that would include bees.
We
Correct.
can include bees.
Bees are awesome. Let's all bees. Let's get our own
I-
honey going. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Oh, don't be kidding. I have,
Bees would be awesome too, but I don't know enough about bees and like distancing, but like I realized I didn't move on to an agricultural piece of land, but times are changing and it would be nice if people could support themselves. And then if it hits the fan, then people aren't, there's not so much contention because you kind of you're like self-sustained.
You still have delicious cakes and cookies. I will say this, that we bought, and it's because we have cats, but we bought for our cats an 8x8 enclosure that is actually designed for chickens. And it went together pretty slick. It's just held together by little clamps and clips and bolts and things. And it's pretty easy. So something like that would be, all of your chickens would be, that's where they would live.
Yeah.
So we would just keep them there, and I don't know why they would bother anybody. I do understand Andy's concern, and you know, if chickens were in my yard, I would have an issue with it. But yeah.
No one wants nuisance. No one wants nuisance animals.
Well, you
We
can't
put the
have
laws in place.
raised chickens, you know,
Yeah.
and you limit no roosters.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Ugh. I love sleeping in. No roosters. Little birds that like the beautiful birds. I'm like, wake me up in the morning. But yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm
Actually,
done. Thank you.
They have a surgery that you can do on roosters to cut their vocal cords.
Why? Just
So they
don't
don't-
have.
They don't crow in the morning.
Well, okay.
Well,
Thank you. It's like doing
we've gone
like
off track.
plastic surgery on your dog. I don't understand.
If that's something you want to put on the agenda, by all means, please get with Jill and Bill and let's have that discussion as a planning commission.
Okay, thank
Happy
you.
to do it.
Okay. All right. Any other commission communications? Okay, Bill, Jill, staff communications.
As of right now, I don't have any applicants or applications for the 2 weeks. So Bill and I can definitely get some language together for the bees and the chickens, so we can at least have that discussion next, in 2 weeks. Other than that, I don't have anything. Bill, do you?
I do. I listened in on a Zoom call. Actually, it was a, I'm trying to find my notes here. It was a Google thing. Actually, no, this was a Zoom thing. There is, as you know, the legislature is going into special session. I think they started today, their special session. They can go for up to 10 days. So just a heads up on that. We're not anticipating anything major as far as land use goes out of that, but you never know. Some of the things that were vetoed may be brought back for either revision or for a veto override. Some of the things that were discussed, though, in the phone call or the Zoom meeting were with regard to House Bill 388. There were LUDMA revisions. They reiterated the Planning Commission's role in land use decisions, and that if the Planning Commission fails to act on a particular item, say the discussion item tonight, there was no one willing to make a motion, and it just kind of wallowed there in no man's land. It's after a certain period of time, and I don't know exactly how long, but after a certain period of time, it's considered a negative recommendation and it goes to the council as such. But we have to put that in our, oh, here it is. We have to put that in our particular ordinance, how long that relief valve is. So it keeps property owners and developers and applicants from floating in no man's land forever, because Planning Commission can't make a recommendation on an item. So that was an interesting one. The other one that I wanted to mention just really quick is with the property rights ombudsman. We talked about this a little bit at the planning conference. Those of you who are there remember, maybe they talked about this during that lunchtime session. But the property rights ombudsman, it has to be demonstrated that the city knowingly and intentionally violated the law when they took a particular stance or action against a property owner's application. And then this was the one where the prevailing party may collect up to $250 per day if they did not go with the prevailing or the property rights ombudsman's recommendation. So that was interesting. I wrote down probably 20 different bills that were discussed, and yeah, it was a busy one. So stay tuned on that. We're gonna have to make a change to our ordinances on the Planning Commission's, I guess, a pocket veto, for lack of a better term. And also the state code allows for up to 10 lots in a minor plat subdivision. Right now, our code currently only allows for 4. We may want to have a conversation about if we want to bump that up. I personally don't think so. I think that 4 is a good number to keep it at and or under for a minor subdivision. If it gets any bigger than that, any more lots than that, it gets to be a little bit more where you're required to do streets and other public improvements that would require the whole subdivision anyway. So I think 4 is a good number, but we might want to have a conversation about bumping that up. In Morgan County, it was as many as 10 lots, and that's the maximum that state code will allow. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
So can you put that on the agenda and get more information? Do a little bit more homework and give us some, what does that look like to us? Like when you say 4 lots, I'm thinking, does that mean you can have a subdivision that's not improved?
Yes.
If it's 4 lots?
Yes. So the one that we approved a few weeks ago, well, it was the last time we met, the 3 lot, what was it, McLaughlin?
Yes.
Yeah. And that was only 3 lots, and they're not required to put in any new infrastructure because it's just a subdivision of a larger lot that already has the frontage and infrastructure in place. So there's no new roads that are required, no new water and sewer. And if there is, that triggers the full subdivision requirement. But in this case, and I think we'll probably see more of these as time goes on.
I agree.
Where they're just 2s and 3s. But I really feel like, and we can have the conversation if you want, but I really feel like 4 is kind of as much as I would like to see at a given time. And if not, they can still subdivide. They just have to go through the full platting, preliminary and final plat process, rather than circumventing it and just going with the minor plat.
But you said the state legislature is discussing it. Does that mean that they're trying to pass a law that requires cities?
Oh, they
to
already
allow-
passed it. But it doesn't require you to allow up to 10. It says you can allow up to 10. But you can have fewer. You can have fewer lots, and then you would have 4 lots.
So
like
I was
we did.
confused. I thought that, I guess I misread that. I thought you were implying that that's something that we should look at and adopt.
No,
Or-
it was for conversation only, really.
What
Like
would
I
be
said,
the
I don't.
benefit of the city doing that?
It could be a benefit for developers that they
No,
wouldn't
the
have to
city.
go. Oh, for the city?
Not the developers, the city.
I don't think there would be
Not
any
necessarily any.
downfall from the city at all, because as soon as anything like sidewalk, like Bill said, sidewalk, road, any type of infrastructure comes into play, it automatically goes from a minor to the preliminary. So we have that. So if there's a huge road and there's a long strip of property that they could put it more than 4 and all the infrastructure's already there, that would be the only time that would even work.
It's just a could and a may and a maybe think about kind of thing, Sarah. It's not necessarily intended to be any particular kind of guidance. And in this case, state code allows for cities to be more restrictive if they want. So
Okay, I was just wondering.
no,
And
you're cool.
Jill helped with the explanation of that it would kind of trigger a change anyway with what we do if we did
Right.
allow it. So
Oh, you bet.
I know it would be a benefit to developers. That's
Right.
kind of a given.
It would be cheaper for them. if
Would
they
it be good for the city? That's the question.
Right. And then on your first point, Bill, is I don't ever see a planning commission meeting with a motion or with an agenda item that's left in no man's land. There's either going to be a vote to recommend or a vote to deny.
Well, we
Yes.
haven't seen them. We haven't seen them, but it is within the realm of possibility. I had one in Morgan County where nobody wanted to vote in favor of a thing and nobody wanted to vote against it either. And so it just kind of sat there for a really long, awkward silence. And finally, someone decided to break the silence and make a motion. And then it failed for a second. And so the developer said, well, what happens now? And they went on to the next agenda item, and the developer said, well, what do I do? And I said, well, we'll put it back on the agenda in 2 weeks and see if we can get a different idea or makeup of the planning commission. And maybe after a couple of weeks, they've had time to sleep on it and decide that they wanted to do it. And they did, and it ended up actually passing. And then it went to the county council and they denied it. But yeah, it's within the realm of possibility. And the main thing was that the state legislature wanted to protect the interests of developers to make sure that they weren't just in limbo forever with no recommendation from the planning commission.
I appreciate that. But kudos to you and Jill for your homework and for your due diligence and giving us all the information that's needed to make a recommendation or a recommendation to deny or approve. So thank you for that. I don't see that being a problem. Like even tonight, it could have been, but it wasn't. So we resolved, we moved forward.
Yep, you guys are a great crew.
So tell us about the coronavirus and what that means for Pleasant View City in the future. How long are we going? We're just following state guidelines. Have you heard anything about Founder's Day? Any decisions made there?
No decision on Founder's Day just yet. We're still planning to hopefully move forward either with the full schedule or with a slightly modified and virtualized schedule. We're looking forward to having some good events, either, like I say, in-person, full regalia type events, parades and salmon bakes and things like that, or maybe just have some modified things where people come and can participate either virtually or do a drive-in movie kind of thing. That's something that I like the idea of. And Sarah and Allison and a couple of the staff members are working together to put together some alternative ideas about the way that could go forward. The longer this thing goes on, the more it's looking like it's going to keep going on. And we've all heard the Lieutenant Governor on Tuesday say that it's the last thing that will change and then reopen are the mass gatherings. I don't know exactly what that means, frankly. We're seeing different guidance from the president and from the governor and even our own health department. So we're just gonna have to kind of play it by ear a little bit. Our target date on any final decision on whether to hold it or not is May 26th. There's a city council that is scheduled for that night. And if at that point, that's our drop dead date, and we'll have a definite idea then how things are going to go one way or the other. As far as long-term recovery, I was actually interested. There's the Wasatch Front Regional Council, which is our MPO in the area, our metropolitan planning organization, is putting together a long-term recovery planning toolkit group. And I've asked to be a part of that because I was a part of a long-term recovery group down in the county that I worked at in Texas after Hurricane Ike. And it was a fascinating process. And I feel like I learned a lot then, and I may have some things that I'd like to share that will help our community both going forward as well as becoming stronger and more resilient to these kinds of things. We're going to see them. These earthquakes that we're seeing down in Magna, we don't see them here in our community yet. And I felt them about a month ago, but I didn't really, they keep talking about aftershocks and things. I haven't felt anything. I guess some people might have done, but we live in an area where those kinds of things can happen and they're not predictable. So the only way to help weather that particular storm is to be prepared for it at all times.
Absolutely.
And so, and even with the kind of worldwide pandemic that we're seeing, the emergency footing that we're on is teaching us a lot. And so when the next one comes, hopefully we'll all be long gone by then, but if we're still around, hopefully we've learned lessons that will prepare us for the next one that comes. One of the things that I was interested to hear just this week is how Utah is the most economically diverse state in the country, which means that, yeah, we've taken a hit on our leisure and retail industries, but that was pretty much it. We've seen a 20% reduction in those things. And that's a significant hit, especially to those people who are involved directly with that. But the rest of our state and our industries continue to do well. And that's really the key to a long-term recovery is that economic diversity. Where I was at down in Texas, it was very heavily invested and involved with the petrochemical industry. And as a result, when Hurricane Ike came on shore, we had lots of money to throw at problems. But the question was, how do we make sure that we can weather in that case, it was a literal storm. How do we weather the storm better? And the answer always came back to economic diversity. And so Utah as a state is doing well. We're doing well as a city. we haven't been as reliant as some others on sales tax revenue and retail sales tax dollars. So we're in a pretty good position to keep things on an even keel. We've worked our budget, and we're still finalizing our budget, but we worked it such that if there is a reduction in our sales tax dollars or in other revenue sources, we've anticipated that, and we've worked that into the budget, and it's something that we're hoping that we can weather well here. And that's a credit actually to Laurie and to the city council and their foresight in making sure we have a little bit of a rainy day fund if we need to dip into that, as well as the efficiency of the staff in general, making sure that our projects come in on or under budget. And so we're in pretty good shape, both as a city and I feel like even as a state, where I think we're in pretty good shape.
How about the real estate market? Have you seen any?
Real estate market that's another tough one. I saw a thing recently reporting on the real estate transactions for the month of March. And it was interesting because they continue to stay steady, both in terms of new sales and new listings. One of the things that has declined, and you might expect this, is that showings have been down, which may foretell a rougher April than we had a fairly good March, but that's to be determined.
Interesting. Well, thank you for all you do. And that back to what Ashley said, I mean, things change and we need to be willing to change, because I don't know what normal is. If somebody says, are we going back to normal? I can't answer what that looks like.
Right.
So
We will have a new normal.
a new normal. You're absolutely right. Well, does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss, or should we make a motion to adjourn? Or did everybody else already drop off?
I'll motion to adjourn. Can I do that?
You can. You did it right. And the motion is carried.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for what you do.
Thank
For
you,
your
guys.
interest.
I was going to suggest, now that the meeting's over, Jeff has some acreage there that might be just farm ground for a while. Maybe Ashley could raise.
There you go. I love that.
Let's turn it into.
Bring some
And, you know,
meat.
you've got to appreciate, I waited till the meeting ended to bring this up. But you know,
did good.
some places have like a community garden. Maybe we can turn Jeff's property into a community chicken coop until he's got that access.
Yeah, but then when he
But
gets
that
that,
no one
access,
goes to
nobody's going to
because-
want to give up their chickens.